I was going to ask you that, actually. It leads on to what I was going to ask you next, really. It was a very male-dominated business from the point of view of it dominated 90% by male musicians.
Yeah.
Did you find that intimidating when you first started doing gigs and
I
and
think
recording?
growing up in the northeast amongst northern men, you get the idea that it's a man's world. I'm telling you. I mean, I had to borrow a guitar because my cousin wouldn't let me play his guitar because I was a girl, and he wouldn't let me play on his pool table either because he said I'd tear the cloth because I was a girl. So, I mean, growing up as a girl in the north, you kind of did feel that you were very different, and you know, women weren't allowed in working men's clubs and stuff like that. The 60s and the 70s were all about women making headway into a man's world. So yes, it was very chauvinistic business, definitely. But I was so full of hope and optimism, and you know, about the world, not just about the male world, but about the world as a whole. Growing up in the 60s, when we believed that all you need is love, and I belonged to that peace movement, so I was very hopeful about the world. And you know, I think now I look back, especially as I found a copy of the first advert that Island Records put in the NME and the Melody Maker. It was a full-page advert, and get this, the advert said, "In an age when most girls are learning to type to music or working in Woolworths, Claire Hamill has made her first LP." And, you know, of course, at the time, I didn't, you know, I was just really, really proud. But I saw that again about 3 years ago, and I could not believe it. I mean, that just shows you what sort of world it was, because you wouldn't dream of saying anything like that now.
No, it is outrageous. I've seen the advert, and
Yeah,
I think it's in the booklet of the album on the CD reissue, and it is quite incredible, actually.
It's quite incredible. Yeah.
When you recorded your second album, October, you ended up working with Paul Samuel Smith as a producer on that, who just worked with Cat Stevens. And that album had well, to my ears, seems to have had a much larger budget as well.
That's true.
Was more time spent on that album than the
Yes,
first one?
very much so. And I think with Chris and Island Records, the style of recording then was very much put everybody in one room, start the tape, and everybody play, and we'll record all night long, and we'll take the best takes with everybody playing all at once. With Paul was meticulous about sound. And he spent hours and hours getting the sound right, which I don't think that wasn't Chris's bag. Chris wasn't a technician from that point of view. He was somebody that just wanted to capture a feeling, you know, he just wanted the kind of, you know, emotion and the moment. Whereas Paul was very much about the sound. He really was a technician when it came to that. And the budget was bigger, and we used a lot more studios, many different studios, and it was a fantastic sounding album at the end of it. And to this day, it still sounds really good and really fresh and, you know, contemporary. I'm really proud of it.
No, it does, and lyrically as well. By that time, were you starting to write your own lyrics for songs as well? I think again I would say that it's a remarkably mature album.
It has started to get. I'd started to get more mature even within that year, but I suppose my world had exploded really. I mean, before then I was just a schoolgirl going from home to school and back, you know, and my world was very, very small. But in that 1 year, I'd travelled internationally and I met tons of people, and it had been a huge influence on me and a change in my life. Fallen in love and, you know, been separated, couldn't be together, and all that sort of stuff, you know. Yeah.
So it was around that time you actually went to the States for the first time, was it, to play?
Yeah, I went to the States to promote the first album and toured in stadiums and places like that, which were just mind-blowing. You
worked with quite a number of artists, you were telling me earlier. I mean, could you list some of the people you actually performed with at that time on bills?
That's right. The first night ever was in Ottawa, and it was with Jethro Tull. And, just driving up to the stadium, I'd never seen a stadium before. I hadn't even been to a football match really, so I hadn't seen any big arena. And then driving up there and thinking, oh my God, it's massive, and going inside, doing a sound check, and the seats just went on forever. But I also remember how sweet Ian Anderson was, because, they were a huge group at the time. They must have been to fill, 20,000 seats. And he came into my dressing room and met me and shook hands and said, how are you? Have you got everything? Have you got drinks? Have you got everything you need? And, and we had a little chat and everything. And I just thought that was really sweet of him. It was nice.
Did you find you were treated that way by most of the artists you appear with when you were touring? Or?
Not always, because, the support act, generally speaking, you're not that interested in the support act. You're too wrapped up in your own thing, and fair enough, because it's stressful doing gigs. You get taken there, you do your sound check, there's lots of waiting around, getting the drum sound. Oh my God, I hate those drum sound checks, banging away, they're really boring. But, and you find the stress mounting. I don't think the support act is the last thing on the headline act's mind, I think, really. So it wasn't always true that people made the effort to come into my dressing room and meet me. But Ian Anderson did. He stood out. People were always sweet, but, if you'd bump into them in the corridor or something like that, they were always nice to you. It's not... I don't ever remember anybody being nasty, really. There probably were some, but I've managed to forget them. So yeah, it was quite something, really. So it was Procol Harum after Jethro Tull and a few blues people, and then coming back to England and then planning another one later on, going back out there. But then it was I did more of the clubs the next time I went back to America, and I met a host of other interesting people as well.
Such as?
Bill Withers, he was a good one. I did a club in Philadelphia with Bill Withers, and so I was still very much in my folk singer mode. I used to sit down. I always wore low-cut tops, because I thought, well, use your assets, girl. And I remember having this fantastic low-cut black top from Granny Takes a Trip or somewhere like that, with rhinestones all over it. But I had this long skirt with embroidery around the bottom, and I did look very folky. And when the audience piled in, it was a sea of black faces all staring up at me, thinking, and they're going, who booked her? We're in, this is Bill Withers, we come to see Bill Withers, and so there was an awful lot of racial abuse coming my way that night, and I really had not been prepared for it at all. So it was a kind of, not a very good booking, but it was a very good education for me, because I stood my ground, I did my set, my half-an-hour set, with people going, shh. How long's she on for, man? Get off the stage, Whitey! And all just, it was amazing. But Bill Withers was lovely. Again, he was just very paternal, and he used to call me Poughkeepsie, and I thought that was so sweet. And then I found out it was a little industrial town north of Philadelphia, and I thought, well, he got that right, didn't he? Little industrial town, Poughkeepsie. Come here, Poughkeepsie, it'll be okay. Don't worry. So that was